Salvete, amici et amica, I'm City Lion, and people keep telling me the trouble with what I do is that I mostly write and almost never make any videos of it. So I'm finally trying to correct that. Everything we come across in the world can be either named or counted. It's a small paradox, but it touches one of the oldest questions there is. Which came first, the number or the word? It's the egg and the chicken again. And my intuitive, subjective feeling, with no factual proof of it, is that probably they arrived together. In fact, mathematics quietly admitted this centuries ago and nobody laughed. Back in 1614, a Scotsman named John Napier published a book with the wonderful title Mirifici Logarithmorum Canonis Descriptio, the description of the wonderful canon of logarithms. And that word he coined, logarithm, the one every school child is later tortured with, if you crack it open, it's just logos and arithmos holding hands, word and number, fused into a single term. The most arithmetical object in the classroom has a name that's half language. Even maths couldn't decide which came first, so it kept both. Of course, he never intended the pun. I realized that. But in the end, we have what we have. The very first sound ever made to pass something on to another living being was already an act of naming, pointing at a thing, an action, or a quality, and giving it a shape in words. Language, from its very first breath, was already doing what etymology now studies. It was fixing meaning to sound. This is where etymology stops being a hobby about old words and starts becoming something larger. When we trace a word back to its roots, we are not just collecting historical curiosities, we are watching a decision being made. The moment a community looked at some piece of the world and decided this is how we'll hold it in language. Etymology is the record of that decision. It's the fossil of a choice. And every choice like that carries meaning forward. That's where semantics comes in. The study of what words actually mean here and now to the people using them. Etymology tells us where the meaning was born. Semantics tells us what it grew into. And words travel astonishing distances from where they start. So I guess you've had enough theory for now, and let's analyze some examples. Let's take the word nice. And I'm pretty sure you know that it comes from the Latin word nescius, meaning ignorant. And in early English, it actually meant foolish or silly before, going on to fussy and precise, and then only much later arriving at pleasant. Or take silly itself. In Old and Middle English, its ancestor meant happy or blessed, then changed to innocent, then to deserving of pity, and only from there slid into foolish. The distance a word travels like that is itself a kind of history. It tells you what a culture started to care about and what it quietly stopped caring about. And the most fascinating questions here are when, how, and why. But words are only one kind of sign. And this is the step I find most interesting. Once you start reading words this way, as fossilized choices, as carriers of meaning that shifts over time, you can read almost anything the same way. A gesture, an image, a stereotype, a national symbol, a habit nobody questions. These are all signs. They all carry meaning that someone at some point attached to them. And that meaning drifts, hardens, or even gets turned against people. This is what semiotics offers. It takes the tools we use in language and lets us point them at the whole cultural world. So let's sum up a little bit. Etymology teaches us to ask, where did this come from? Semantics teaches us to ask, what does it mean now? And semiotics lets us ask both questions about things that were never words at all, about the images and stereotypes and cultural patterns we swim in every day without even noticing, and we do swim in them without noticing. Almost everything we say is shaped by political culture, by habit, by inherited experience, and by a dozen quieter forces we rarely stop to examine, forces that cloud our view without our consent. I don't pretend I can step fully outside of that. Nobody can. But I think it's worth trying to notice it. And this way of looking, this movement from etymology to semantics and then to semiotics, is one of the few tools I know that actually helps. So, what I'm reaching for is a way of reading the world that doesn't belong to any single nation or group. A shared attention built from the simple act of naming that lets us trace where our meanings came from and see them a little more clearly. And that's a task worth taking on, precisely because, at first glance, it looks impossible. City Lion was here with you.